Good afternoon, Peter. This is Timothy Lampley, your instructor for Paraclete Academy's Essential Mathematics with Applications, course code MATH09. I hope that you were able to enjoy your Christmas break and take a rest from the hard work that you've been doing in this course and, of course, any of your other classes that you were taking. However, with the holiday seasons behind us and us well within the new year, it's time to get to work again. So let's go ahead and let's get started with that. We always start each lecture with a lecture outline to let you know from start to finish what your expectation of this lecture will be and what we'll cover within it in order. So we always start our lecture with a quick review of the last lesson being section 1.5, objective A, and that objective was to divide by a single digit with no remainder in the quotient. Okay, we're going to provide a brief overview of some of those concepts, and of course, for any fine details that you need, that's the benefit of a flipped classroom. You can actually go back to the lecture for section 1.5, objective A, to get the details and make sure you understand those concepts. Okay. That will be followed by the new lesson lecture. So the new lesson lecture, we're still in 1.5, and we will move to objective B, which is to divide by a single digit with a remainder in the quotient. We'll be covering how-tos, we'll be using examples, and then between this lesson lecture and our actual meeting time for class, you will have two you-try-it problems that you'll need to work on and work through to help you make sure that you understand the concepts of this new lesson lecture and have those available for review at the beginning of our meeting time session, okay? That will be followed by the homework assignment, okay, and meeting times within this lecture. So we'll talk about what your homework assignment will be. Remember, you don't have to work on that. We're going to be working on, the homework assignment during our class time using that new flipped classroom approach. Okay, that's a good benefit to you because I'll be there to assist you and to help you to make sure that you understand those concepts, that you're able to process them, that you're able to apply them, and to remember them for the next approaching lesson lecture. Okay, not only that, but any work, remember that your homework, even though it'll be assigned and worked on Wednesday, will be due Friday. So any work that you complete on Wednesday will just make your load easier as the due date approaches. Okay. And then, of course, the approximate time for the lecture will be 30 minutes. It could run a little longer than that in order to make sure that we're providing you with the information that you need. That's another benefit of the lectures, that you get to pause it, you get to reflect, you get to kind of chew on and make sure that you're digesting and understanding the information that's covered. And then, of course, you can go back and review the information. So it might run a little longer than 30 minutes, okay? So let's go ahead and continue. So we'll move to the quick review of section 1.5, objective A. That objective was to divide by a single digit with no remainder in the quotient. So what do we use division for? What is the purpose of the division operation in mathematics? Well, we use division to separate objects into equal groups. And we've used various examples of that. If I have a candy bar and you're looking at the candy bar and you want a piece and you want an equal amount, I would need to divide that. I would need to separate that object, that candy bar, into two equal parts so that we both have the same amount. That's an example. But I think you might appreciate this example. So we'll use an application problem to help us better understand the issue, okay? So let's do that. So if Peter Lampley bakes 10 delicious pumpkin spice cookies, and these look really, really good right here, and he wants to give each of the 5 family members the same amount, so there's Daddy, Mama, Peter, Roman, and then Evangeline. If he wants to give each of those 5 family members the same amount, how many cookies would each person get to eat? Okay, that's an important question. So Peter makes 10 cookies, There's 5 family members. He wants to give each one the same amount or an equal amount of cookies. How many do they get to eat? Well, we're going to have to use division to figure that out. So let's look forward here. So remembering how we use, or the steps that we use to solve an application problem, we go to step 1. Make a list of what we know from the problem. So looking at the problem that we have right here, we see that Peter made 10 pumpkin spice cookies. We also know that the Lampley family has 5 members as we read the application problem. We also know that Peter wants to give each family member the same amount of cookies. Okay, so that's the information that we know from the problem. Step 2, determine the problem to be solved. Well, the problem to be solved is how many cookies does each family member get? That's that. So step 3, we need to process and convert the known information from the problem into the correct math operation. So here's the process part of the step. We know we have 10 cookies. We know we have 5 family members. We know that Peter wants to give each family member the same or equal number of cookies. So in our processing of this, we see that in order to separate the 10 cookies into an equal number for each family member to enjoy, we will need to use the division math operation. Okay, so we're going to use division to achieve this. So with that information, we'll convert it into a division problem. So the 10 cookies is the amount we start with, okay, before separating them into the equal amounts, right? So the 10 cookies, that would be called, in this particular example, the dividend. That's the number that we start out with before we separate it into equal parts, right? We also know that there are 5 family members that Peter wants to give an equal amount of cookies to. This is the number we are going to divide by. So this is called the divisor, right? So the 5 family members, since that's the number that we want to separate the 10 cookies into 5 equal parts, the 5 would be the divisor. Okay, and then of course the answer to the problem, or the equal amount of cookies that each family member gets, that would be called the quotient, or the answer to the division problem. So let's see what that looks like as far as what an actual division problem would look like. Okay, so we have it here. So this is how that looks. So here we have the 10. So here is the cookies. This is the dividend, right? So this is the number that we start with before we do any separating. Okay, so that represents the 10 cookies that you baked. Here we have the divisor, so we have 5. So here we have the 5 family members. So Peter's got 10 cookies, and he wants to divide them or separate them into 5 equal parts. Okay, so this is our divisor. And then when we do the division, so we know that 10 divided by 5 is 2, because 5 times 2 is 10. So we put the 2 up here, we multiply that, 2 times 5, we know that's 10, and then we subtract 10 minus 10 equals 0. So when we see the 0 here, we know that the problem divided equally. So it shows right here that the answer is that each family member would get 2 cookies to eat. If Peter made 10 pumpkin spice cookies, and there's 5 family members, and Peter wants to take the 10 cookies and separate them equally so that each family member gets the same amount of cookies, we see that Peter would give each family member 2. And we used the division operation to figure that out. So here we can see how important division is. So also, recall that division is the opposite operation of multiplication. So just like subtraction is the opposite of addition, we know that division is the opposite of multiplication. So this means that we can use multiplication to solve and even check our division work. So remember this, okay? Here we have 10 divided by 5 equals 2. But we can also use multiplication to check our division and make sure that we're right. So the divisor here is 5. The quotient is 2. And when we take the divisor and we multiply it by the quotient, we should get the dividend. If we don't get the dividend, then our answer is wrong. But we can see here that it's correct because we know that 5 times 2 equals 10. And since this is the dividend, we know that we got the correct answer. Okay? So continuing with our review, please recall that there are 2 division properties of 1. So there's a total of 4 division properties. 2 are for 1, and 2 are for 0. Okay, so you'll need to go back through, you'll either need to check through your textbook, or you'll need to go back through the last lecture lesson for Objective A, okay, to research and make sure that you understand those properties. Remember, understanding the properties just makes it easier for you to do the math quicker. Okay, so there is one important part here that you do really need to remember, which is why I'm covering it here now. You need to remember all of it, but just as part of the review, division by 0 is not allowed. Okay, so in other words, you cannot have the number 0 as a divisor. So you can't say 8 divided by 0. When you do that, you get what's called, and the reason for that, and we're not at that level of math yet, but when you divide 8 by 0, you get what's called an imaginary number. And that doesn't mean it's a pretend number. That's just a type of number that's within a higher level of mathematics that is beyond the scope of this course. So that will have to be covered in a different course at a different level. So just right now, suffice it to say, Peter, that you can never have 0 at this level. At this level of mathematics, you cannot divide by 0. Okay, 0 cannot be the divisor. Okay, let's continue. So recall that when a dividend is a larger whole number, the digits in the quotient are found in steps. So in order to review that, which is beyond the scope of this quick review, go back to the last lecture and start the video at 20 minutes, 26 seconds, all the way to 28 minutes, 48 seconds for the step-by-step process of how to do a division. Okay, and you're going to be dividing, this is of course Objective A, which is dividing by a single digit and not having a remainder in the quotient, right? So go ahead and look at that in order to get that information. And let's go ahead and move forward to our new lesson lecture, okay? So we know that there are 4 objectives in section 1.5. We already covered Objective A, so now we're on Objective B, which is to divide by a single digit with a remainder. Before, there wasn't a remainder. Now there is a remainder in the quotient. So let's go ahead and cover that. So we've learned how to divide numbers evenly, but sometimes it's not possible to separate objects into a whole number of equal groups. Sometimes you're going to have something left over. So here's an example to help us understand this. Okay, so a baker has 14 muffins to pack into 3 boxes. Each box holds 4 muffins. After the baker packs the boxes, he has 2 muffins left over, and there are no more boxes to put them into. This leftover amount, the 2, that's called a remainder in division, okay? So here we see, just looking at the picture, we've got 3 boxes. Each box holds 4 muffins. He has a total of 14 muffins, and he is looking to divide or separate the muffins into the boxes. However, the boxes can only hold so many. The boxes only hold 4. He's got 14 muffins. So he's got these here, and there are 2 that are left over. There are no more boxes, but he's got more muffins than boxes. This number 2 in division is called a remainder. Okay, so there are 2 left over that he wasn't able to divide evenly. Let's continue. So let's see what this looks like, okay? So looking at this same problem that we're looking at through pictures, now let's look at that through the division operation, okay? We're going to look at that in a numerical way. So here we have the 14. So the 14, that's the dividend, right? That's the total number of objects or the muffins. That's the total number of muffins before we separate them, right? And then we have 3, right? So 3 is the divisor. that's the number of boxes, that's the number of boxes that the objects are supposed to go into, right? So we look at 14 divided by 3, and then remembering from our previous lesson, we use multiplication to get there. So we see 3 times 1 is 3, 3 times 2 is 6, 3 times 3 is 9, 3 times 4 is 12, 3 times 5 is 15. Okay, so we know we need to stop because 15 is greater than 14. So we got to get the highest number closest to the dividend without going over. And the highest number that's closest without going over we see is 12, right? So 14 divided by 3 we see here is 4, right? Because 3 times 4 is 12, so we're going to put the 4 here. And then 4 multiplied by 3, well, we see that gives us the answer right here. 4 multiplied by 3 is 12. So we put the 12 underneath the 14 and we subtract. So when we subtract, 12 from 14, we have a difference of 2. So instead of this being a 0, and remember there's no more digits here, there's no more digits for us to bring down, and we don't have a 0. So this means that we have 2 that are left over. So like we go back here, we see we've got 3 boxes, right? So the 3 boxes are the divisor. The total number of muffins, that's the dividend, right? And so we see that when we divide them equally, we see that there are groups of 4, right? But there are 2 that are left over. So here we see that the quotient is 4, but let's show you what the number is. So we see that this number 2 that's here, this number 2 is actually called the remainder, okay? And the remainder is the number of objects that are left over. So the answer to this problem, 14 divided by 3, would be 4R2, or another way of saying that would be 4 remainder 2. Okay, we're able to divide the 14 muffins into the 3 boxes so that there's 4 remainder 2. Okay, and that's how we would express that answer. So remember, though, that you can use, just like we talked about before, how you can use multiplication to check your division, you can still use multiplication to check your division when you have a remainder. And this is the formula. This is the way that works, so you're going to want to remember this. The quotient multiplied by the divisor, and then to that adding the remainder, equals the dividend. So if it's a number that divides evenly, which means you get a 0 at the end, it's quotient multiplied by divisor equals dividend. When you have a remainder, it's the same thing, you just add the remainder. So a quotient multiplied by the divisor plus the remainder should equal the dividend. Now let's see what that looks like so that makes more sense to you, okay? So we have here the divisor multiplied by the quotient plus the remainder. Okay, so here we have 3 times 4 plus 2. The divisor is 3, that's the number that we were separating it by. 4, that's the quotient that we got, and then we had a remainder, right? So remember we talked about order of operations. You learned earlier that everything that's in the parentheses is done first. After that, when you multiply or divide, that's what's done next, right? So in looking at this, we're going to work the problem viewing the multiplication first. So 3 times 4 is 12, and then we're going to bring down the plus 2. So now we have 3 times 4 is 12 plus 2. So I take 12, and then I add the 2 to it, and I get 14. So here you see that when we did that, the quotient multiplied by the divisor adding the remainder to that equals the dividend. And so it does here. 3 times 4 is 12, plus 2 is 14, and that matches the dividend, so we know we got it right. 4 remainder 2, or 4R2 is the answer. Okay, so now let's look at some example problems and work through them. Okay, so we're here at our example part of the problem. So let's go ahead and take a look. Example 4, which would be on page 36 of the section 1.5 objective B for the textbook, states divide 2,522 by 4 and check. So let's go ahead and let's get started on that, okay? So the very first thing that we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and write the problem. 2,522 divided by 4. Okay, so remembering what we learned from before, 2 will not divide into 4 because 2 is less than 4, right? So we're going to go up 1. Let's try 25. Okay, so 25 is greater than 4, so we can work on that. So let's go ahead. So we have 4 times 1 is 4. So we're going to go through our multiplication. It's a good thing that we've been working hard on memorizing those, because that would make things much harder, right? 4 times 2 is 8. 4 times 3 is 12. 4 times 4 is 16. 4 times 5 is 20. Okay, we're getting close. 4 times 6 is 24. And then 4 times 7 is 28. Okay, we can see here that 28 is greater than 25, so we can stop at this point, right? So we need to pick a number that is as close to this as possible without going over. And we can see from here that this qualifies, because that's 24. 24 is less than 25. So 25 divided by 4, right? We could see that 4 times 6 is 24. So 24, right? So 25 divided by 4 is 6. So we're going to take the 6, and we're going to go ahead and multiply that out. So 6 times 4, and we already know what that answer is because it's right here, 24, or because we have it memorized. By the way, Peter, when you have when you have your multiplication tables memorized, you don't need to do this. I'm just doing this for you right now until you get familiar with how to do the division operation. And you could do that, but once you have it in your brain and you have it memorized, you won't even need to do this. We're just doing this right now as a preliminary step. Okay. So 6 times 4 is 24, and we know here that we need to subtract, right? So when we take 25 and we subtract 24 from that, we know that we have 1, right? So even if you needed to break it up, 2 minus 2 is 0. We don't need to write that down. 5 minus 4 is 1. So there we are. Okay. Now we're not done, right? Because we have 2 other digits that we need to bring down. So we're going to go ahead and bring this digit down, and now we have a 12. So 12 divided by 4, well, we know that 3 times 4 is 12. Okay. So we've got that right here. So we're going to put, so 12 divided by 4 is 3. And we know that that's true because, remember, divisor multiplied by the quotient should equal the, the dividend, right? So 3 times 4 is 12. And when we subtract 12 from 12, we get a 0. Oh, hey, look, it divides evenly. We're done. No, we're not done yet because we need to make sure that we go through all the digits, right? So don't get tricked by that. We need to bring this digit down. Okay, we need to bring this digit down. So from here, we need to look here, and we see, oh, wait a second. Well, 2 doesn't divide into 4, so what do we do with that? Well, 2 divided by 4, that doesn't happen, right? So that's 0. So what we're going to do is we're going to put a 0 right here. So 0 times 4, we know to be, because we know from the multiplication property of 0, we know that any number multiplied by 0 is 0, right? So 4 multiplied by 0 is still 0. Okay, and we bring the 0 down, or we multiply it, put it down here. Okay, and then we know that 2 subtract 0, so 2 subtract nothing is still 2. So there we are. Okay, we don't have any more numbers here. We don't have any more numbers here to bring down, and we see that we have a remainder. So the way that we would write the answer to this is 2,522 divided by 4 is 630, remainder 2. But we're also told that we need to check this problem, right? So let's go ahead and let's check it. So we know, and we can just make a little note right here for ourselves, that the divisor multiplied by the quotient plus, and then you take that product and add the remainder, should equal the dividend. Now, once you have all this memorized, you don't have to write it down. Once again, just because we're getting used to those concepts and we're learning those concepts and you're learning to process those, that's the reason why I'm writing these down. It speeds things up and you don't have to write these things down. We're just doing them because we're becoming acquainted with them. Once you've got them down and memorized, Peter, you don't have to take these steps. You can skip that, actually. Or you'll just do those steps mentally without even writing them down, and that's good. Okay? So the divisor here is 4. The quotient is 630, and the remainder is 2. So let's go ahead and see if that indeed equals 2,522. So let's go 630, and we're going to multiply that by 4. So we need to remember those things. So 4 multiplied by 0 is, and we know because of the multiplication operation of 0, that that's 0. And then we continue. 4 multiplied by 3 is 12. We know we need to carry the 1. 4 multiplied by 6 is 24. So 6 times 4 is 24, or sorry, 4 times 6. Remember associative property, it's the same thing. So 4 times 6 is 24, plus the 1 is 25. So we might look at that and go, oh, wait a second, that doesn't equal that. Oh no, we got the problem. No, remember that we still have to add the remainder. So now what we're going to do is we're going to come here and we're going to write 2,520 plus 2. So 2 plus 0 is 2. And then we bring it down to 2 because this would be like having zeros, right? So 2 plus 0 is 2. 5 plus 0 is 5. 2 plus 0 is 2. So does my sum equal the dividend? Yes, it does. So this is the correct quotient. 2,522 divided by 4 equals 630, remainder 2. I'm just going to leave that up there for a moment so that you can pause this and be able to write that down as a note. When we're going through this, by the way, just as a quick reminder, it's the first time that you're watching the video. It's okay to just watch it and just kind of soak it in and play it again and make sure that you're getting it. But the second time that you're doing the video, it would be helpful for you to have a piece of paper and actually work these out with me as I'm doing it so that you understand how it works. Okay, that would be extremely helpful. So here we go. Okay, so we did that first example 4 problem, and now we're going to move to the second example. Okay, our lecture is almost over. So from here we have example 5 located on page 36 under the examples. Okay, the instructions tell us to divide 27,438 by 9 and check. So let's go ahead and let's get started with this. So first, let's write the problem. So we have 27,438 divided by 9. Okay, let's get started. So here, 2 divided by 9. Well, okay, that's not going to work, right? And normally we would put a 0, but we don't put a 0. We don't put the zeros in front, right? We're dealing with whole numbers. We're not dealing with fractions or decimals or things like that. So 2 divided by 9 doesn't work, so now we have to go 27. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's work that out. So we have 9, right? So we have 9 times 1 equals 9. 9 times 2 equals 18. 9 times 3 equals 27. Hey, we've got the exact number. So the number, remember the goal is to go as high and get as close to this number as you can without going over. Well, 27 is equal to 27, so we're not going over. That'll work perfect, right? So 27 divided by 9 we know to be 3. Okay, so 3 times 9 is 27. We're going to go ahead and write that down. And now it's time to subtract. So 27 subtract 27 is 0. Okay, so we're not done though because we have other numbers in the dividend to bring down. So let's go ahead and let's bring down the 4. Okay, so we see here that we brought down the 4. So now the question is 4 divided by 9. Well, we know that 4 can't divide into 9, right? So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to actually do a 0. So we put a 0 here. So we see 0 multiplied by 9 is 0. And we know that because we remember the multiplication property of 0, that any number multiplied by 0 is 0, right? So here, 0 multiplied by 9 is 0, and we're going to subtract. So we have 4 subtract 0 is 4, okay? And then from here, we see that we have a couple more digits to bring down, so we're going to bring down the 3, and we have 43, okay? So from here, okay, so we see here that we have brought down the 3. So with the 3 here, okay, so we see here that we've brought down the 3. So now we see 43 divided by 9. So that means that we need to continue on our multiplication trick here. So 9 times 1 is 9, 9 times 2 is 18, 9 times 3 is 27, 9 times 4 is 36, and then 9 times 5, right, is 45. Right? So, okay, here we go. So 45 is greater than 43. We're supposed to pick the number that's closest to this without going over. That would be 36, right? So 43 divided by 9 we see to be 4. 4 times 9 is 36. And now we need to subtract. So we got to remember everything that we learned with subtraction too, Peter. So we see here that we can't take this 3 and subtract it by 6, because the minuend is less than the subtrahend. We're going to get a negative number. We can't do that. We're dealing with whole numbers here. So that means that we need to borrow, right? So the 4, we're going to borrow 1 from the 4 so that it becomes a 3, and that 1 comes over to the 3, so that looks like a B, but it's really 13, right? So now we take 13 minus 6. So we know that 6 and 6 is 12. So 6 and 7 is 13. So 13 minus 6 is 7. Okay, so here we go. Now, are we done yet? No, because we have one more number from the dividend we need to bring down. So we're going to bring that down. And so we have our 8. So now we have 78. So 78 divided by 9. That means we need to continue on our trek here, right? So we have 9 times 5 is 45. Then we have 9 times 6. So 9 times 6 is 54. 9 times 7 is, I believe, oh gosh. Okay, so 9 times 7 is 63. Guys have a little trouble remembering these. Very, very important, right? Don't get rusty on these. 7 times 9 is 63. And then we have 9 times 8 is 72. Okay? And then we have 9 times 9 is 81. Okay, so here we go. We've gone over again, so we stop right here. We know we don't need to go any further because we've gone over. Remember, with these, we have to get as close to that number as possible without going over, and that number thus far is 8. So 9 times 8 is 72. So 78 divided by 9 is 8. 8 times 9 is 72. We're going to subtract, and we see here that 8 minus 2, the difference is 6. So here we are. We've reached the end of the road here. We don't have any more numbers in our dividend to bring down. So we see that the answer so far appears to be, so 27,438 divided by 9 would be 3,048 remainder 6. This appears to be the answer, but we need to check it. We don't need to just kind of look and go, oh, okay, yeah, that's the answer, because what if we're wrong? What if I, messed up here in one of these and I thought I remembered the right answer and I didn't? So we need to check it. So let's go ahead and do that. So remember that the divisor multiplied by the quotient, and then you take that product and add the remainder, and you should get the dividend. If you do, excuse my horrible writing, if you do, so divisor multiplied by quotient, adding the remainder equals the dividend. If you do, you've got the right answer. If not, you messed up somewhere and you need to start again. So let's look at that. So the divisor here is 9, multiplied by the quotient, which is 3,048. Adding to that the remainder, which is 6, should equal the dividend, which is 27,438. So let's see if that's the case. So we're going to take 3,048. We're going to multiply that by 9. Okay, so 9 times 8 is 72. 4 times 9 is 36, right? 36 plus 7, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43. That's 43. Right? And then 9 times 0 is 0. But we have something here, so plus 4. So 9 times 0 is 0. 0 plus 4 is 4. And then 9 times 3 is 27. Okay, so we've done this part, and if we skip and go, oh, wait, we got it wrong, we're going to start over. No, we don't do that. We still have to add the remainder. So now we've done this part. Now let's add the remainder. So 27,432 plus 6. Okay, so 6 plus 2 is 8. Bring that. There's nothing here, so these are like 0. So you can just bring those down. Save yourself a little trouble here. Okay. Does my sum equal the dividend? Yes, it does. So your quotient is correct. Okay, let's go ahead and let's get back to the lecture. I'm going to leave that there for a quick moment so that you can look through that on your second time around and actually be doing the math with me. And then at that point, you can pause if I'm going too fast. That's the beauty of a flipped classroom and having a recorded lecture. You can pause as many times as you need to get your notes up to speed and get that taken care of. And you should be taking notes. Don't just go, well, why do I need to take notes when I have the lecture? You still need to take notes because you need to get this into your brain. You need to make sure that you're understanding it. You need to make sure that you're able to process this, which is what we're doing here, that we're able to understand and reason why we're using what we're using. You need to be able to apply it, which means that you need to be able to take the things that you're learning and perform the math operation correctly and get the right answer. And then you need to remember, right? So those are the 4 steps to learning math: understanding, processing, applying, and remembering for future lessons. Don't take the shortcut and not do notes. You need notes, okay? Let's go ahead and let's head back to the lecture. Okay, so we have worked through 2 examples that were located on page 36. We took 2 division problems that had remainders in their quotient, and we learned how to use multiplication and addition to check our problems and see if we were correct or not. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about homework assignment and meeting times. Okay, so to practice the concepts learned in this lesson, you need to do the following. Okay, so your assignment is going to be to do the 2 you try it problems 4 and 5 on page 36 of the textbook. You need to have those done, and you need to have those ready so that we can review them at the class time. Okay, so you're not expected to do these until, after sometime between watching the lecture and our meeting time. Okay, so just do these 2 problems under You Try It, page 36, You Try It 4, and You Try It 5. Do those, show your work, all your work, and have those problems ready to present and for us to review at the beginning of our class meeting time, and then we can go ahead and go with the rest of the study hall, okay? The homework period, all right? The class meeting is going to be Wednesday, January 9th at 8 p.m. I know that Mom has her Knowing the Truth discipleship that she's going through. We still need to go through and make sure that you're learning. So I know it's late. I know you'll probably be a little tired. There's not anything I can do about it. You're just going to have to power through, okay, and get these things done. So maybe getting some good rest the night before, making sure you got to kind of get to bed a little earlier on Tuesday evening to make sure that you have enough rest might be a good idea as well. So the homework assignment, let's go ahead and talk about that. The homework assignment is section 1.5 exercises. Okay, and let's actually get you a page number for that, because I noticed that I didn't write that down on the lesson here. So in the lecture, so your homework assignment is section 1.5 exercises, objective B, exercises 29 to 37. Every odd. So not every other odd, you're going to do every odd. So from 29 to 37, that's going to be 29, 31, 33, 35, 37, 39, 41, 43, 45, 47, 49, 51, 53, 55, and 57. Okay, I actually have it down 29 to 37, but I think I wrote that down wrong. So there's actually more problems than that, okay? So let's make that correction real quick. Homework assignment, 1.5 exercises, objective B, exercise problems 29 through 57, not 37, 57. Every odd, okay? So that's 29, 31, 33, 35, 37, 39, 41, 43, 45, 47, 49, 51, 53, 55, 57. So correction, Exercises 29 to 57, every odd. That's going to be due Friday, January the 11th, 2019. That's due this Friday, okay? And we need to make sure that we allot our time and everything to get that done, all right? Okay, let's go ahead. And let me just bring this back. All right, so we went through Objective B. We looked and saw that it wasn't really that much different. There are times where you're going to have to divide and separate a starting number, which is the dividend, and you're going to try to separate that into equal amounts, but you're going to have a remainder. You're going to have some things left over, like the muffins, right? We need to know how to do that, and we went over that. So you just go ahead and perform the division, and when you get a remainder, you're going to check your division by taking the divisor, multiplying that by the quotient, and then take that product and add it to the remainder, and that total that you have there, if that equals the dividend, you got the right problem. So, of course, if you have any questions whatsoever about how to do that, you've got the lesson here. So first, check the lesson, research the lesson, go through the lecture, and look through that first. If you're still not sure, look through the textbook. If you're still not sure after that, you're more than welcome to email me or call me, or if I'm home, hey Dad, I'm not sure how to do this. So I know we meet on class time, and that's what class time is for. But if in between class time and when the homework is due, you have problems that you don't understand, don't turn in your homework with question marks circled around there. That's before you have to turn it in, because those problems will be counted as wrong, okay? It's your responsibility to take the time and make sure that you contact me so I can help you, okay? I love you, care about you, and happy dividing.